Sean O'Malley versus Eddie Wineland takes place on the main card of UFC 250 Nunes versus Spencer. It's opening up the main card, which I could not think of a better way to open this card. Although it's not the most stacked card in the world, we do have some fun fights throughout. That's a difficult three words to say back to back, but either way, I think the Sugar Sean O'Malley's going to win this fight against Eddie Wineland. I know why the UFC has made this fight. They want Sean O'Malley to look really good against an older veteran who's still respected as a name, but might not be as good as he once was. They're looking for Sean O'Malley to get a big finish and add to his highlight reel so that they can promote him further and then move him into being jumped up the rankings. But Eddie Wineland is a tough test for Sean O'Malley. I just feel like Sean O'Malley's going to pass this test with flying colours. There's a lot of things I notice when I look at this fight. Let's talk about the fight in general first of all. Eddie Wineland is a guy who has lost to a lot of good guys and has beat a lot of bad guys. I feel like we found his level at the moment. He loses to guys like Alejandro Perez and John Dodson and Brian Caraway and Johnny Eduardo, and he beats guys like Frankie Saenz, Takeya Mizugaki and Gregory Popov. In his most recent performance, he beat Gregory Popov. He's actually been recently somewhat active. It's not like he's taken a few years off or anything. He's fighting yearly, which at least for a veteran like himself is somewhat active compared to guys that can take 2 years off and come back and look completely different. So we kind of have an idea of how Eddie Wineland is going to look coming into this fight. It's not like we have to do a lot of guessing. He's probably going to look quite similar to the way he looked against Gregory Popov, which is a man with a very wide stance, who likes to plod forward, who likes to square up with his opponents, and likes the style of boxing with people. Gregory Popov in their fight covered up, let Eddie Wineland tee off with his hands, try to trade with him boxing style. That's not going to work. I feel like Sean O'Malley can take advantage of a lot of things that Eddie Wineland does. And although Wineland sounds like an amazing place that I'd love to visit on holiday, I just feel like he's going to lose here. You look at the leg kicks. You've got a guy like Eddie Wineland. He loves his lead leg on the outside of his opponent's lead leg, so he can counter well off the jab. I just feel as though by doing that with such a wide base, you open up the tool of Sean O'Malley, which is his great inside leg kick. He's got amazing leg kicks, hard leg kicks. We saw them against Andre Sukumtar, crippling leg kicks within like the first 10 seconds. Like the first few leg kicks that Sean O'Malley landed against Andre Sukumtar near enough crippled him in those first few rounds. And I feel like against a guy like Eddie Wineland, that inside leg kick's going to be way open for him. He's going to slam that away from a range that Eddie Wineland is not used to. Not to mention, another thing about Eddie Wineland's game that I don't quite like coming into this fight is the fact that he's squared up so much with his opponents. In his last fight with Gregory Popov, he was really square when he was letting loose combinations against Gregory, against the cage and stuff, walking him down. He really squared up his stance, shoulders on. That's opening up all kinds of front kicks for Sean O'Malley, which he loves to throw. I just feel as though he's going to outrange Eddie Wineland here. He's going to land the inside leg kick from range, knock Eddie Wineland off balance because he has such a wide stance and he wants to be on the outside of his opponent's lead leg. He loves to square up, walk guys down, throw great boxing combinations. 1, 2, pretty simple combinations. Sean O'Malley's going to eat that up all day. He moves too well. He's not like these guys that are going to shell up and go blow for blow with him. He moves, he throws a lot of kicks, he sets stuff up, he throws a shit ton of feints, which is something that we haven't seen a lot of guys try against Eddie Wineland. I think that's going to throw off Eddie Wineland a little bit, not to mention in his Popov fight as an older man, he did look like he was slowing down a little bit throughout that fight. He was throwing a lot of punches, don't get me wrong, and he may come in with a little bit more of a patient approach here. I just feel as though if he plays that patient game, he's going to lose. And if he plays the walk forward and try and unload game, he's going to lose even more. I don't like the matchup for Eddie Wineland. I think it's a great test for Sean O'Malley, though. Sean O'Malley is a guy who has, 750k Instagram followers, and he's not even ranked. That's a big fucking deal, if you ask me. That's almost more followers than Darren Till. And Darren Till's a huge name that could be co-main event of some pay-per-views, against the right opponent, of course. But either way, Sean O'Malley is a huge name right now in the UFC, and he's coming in with a lot of steam here, coming off a huge win against Jose Alberto Quinones in his last fight. That's a difficult name to say. Shorten your fucking name! Either way. Big win against Jose Alberto Quinones in his last fight with a head kick and punches. Got out of there with no damage whatsoever, really. I don't think he even got touched in the fight. I think he might have got hit by one left hand, but other than that, nothing really landed with any kind of effectiveness. He's turning right around to fight against Eddie Wineland. I feel as though this is going to be the snowball effect where Sean O'Malley is going to improve rapidly, because during his time off, and I do want to talk about this with Sean O'Malley, he did not just sit around like these other guys with USADA suspensions and just train, and I'll get back to training when I've got a year to go. Like, he took his time off. I think it was about 2 years. Let's see whenabouts it was. Andre Stukumtat was in 2018. He came back in 2019 at the end of the year. A year and a half, close to 2 years, he's been out of the cage. No, even longer than that, sorry. 2 years. Exactly 2 years since he's been out of the cage. But since he's been out of the cage, what has he done? He's been training for fights, which means he's been in fight camp, which means he's staying in shape and improving all the way along. Was supposed to be fighting Jose Alberto Quinones back in 2018. Then he was supposed to be fighting Marlon Vera in 2019. That didn't work. All of these training camps are going to add up for Sean O'Malley. He's learning every time he goes through them. Not only that, but to stay active, he enters a grappling tournament at Quintet Ultra with the UFC team, subs Takanori Gomi in the first round. Like, Takanori Gomi is maybe one of the best submission wins in Nate Diaz's career, bar Jim Miller. Like, that's a really good win for Nate Diaz. In a grappling competition, some of these old guys, they don't have to worry about can I not take the damage anymore? Grappling is something where a lot of these older guys can still hang with the young bloods. And Sean O'Malley ripped up a guillotine and got him out of there in the first round. Then he fought Hector Lombard. Got ankle locked almost immediately, but obviously it's Hector Lombard, so I'm not really willing to look at that fight. But then he went to Gilbert Melendez, who's a bigger man and a great grappler himself. It was a draw because no one got a submission, but if you're looking at that as a scoring situation, and if that was an MMA fight, Sean O'Malley would have won that grappling bout. He had great moments. He took the back of Gilbert Melendez. He almost had him in various submissions throughout the grappling exchange. Sean O'Malley has been active, and not to mention he's been active in the things that he needs to improve. His grappling. Because once you improve your grappling, he's going to be way more confident on the feet. And we saw that confidence on the feet in this fight against Jose Alberto Quinones, who could not get a hold of him. And fights in a very similar style to Eddie Wineland, except Eddie Wineland is a little bit more flat-footed. I don't like this matchup for him. Eddie Wineland is tough. And he's got power. And he can walk guys down. And he can take a shot well. But that's guys like Grigory Popov. It's not Sean O'Malley. You're not hitting that hard. You're not fighting a guy who moves as much as Sean O'Malley. Like, Eddie Wineland is real tough. He could give Sean O'Malley some problems. I understand that. But I kind of understand what this fight is. They've picked a great style for Sean O'Malley, who's still a well-respected name and a dangerous fighter who's coming off a win. And they put him in there against Sean O'Malley for Sean O'Malley to look really good against him and get the finish in the first round. That's what they've done. And it's going to pay off, I think. Sean O'Malley's going to get the job done. And after this one, I'd like to see O'Malley look to take on a guy like Brian Kelleher. Kelleher is fighting Cody Stamann on the same card at UFC 250. If Kelleher does win, he will be ranked in the top 15. If he is ranked in the top 15 and he does pull off the win against Cody Stamann, which I don't think he's going to do. I think Cody Stamann's going to beat Brian Kelleher. But if Kelleher does pull off that win somehow and get a KO and look spectacular and then call out Sean O'Malley, that's the big fight to make. If O'Malley gets past Wineland and Kelleher gets past Stamann, you got to cross a lot of fingers for that to happen, but even still, it could happen very well. We know Brian Kelleher, he's been outclassed before. He got outclassed in his last fight against Hunter Azure, who's a dangerous guy at bantamweight, who's even bigger than him, and got the KO there instead at featherweight on short notice. Now he's had a full camp, and he's had that camp translating over to this one. He's got a chance against Stamann. I just feel as though if he does beat Stamann and call out Sean O'Malley, that's the big fight that Sean O'Malley needs to get himself into the rankings. There's nothing better than hype before a title fight. That's what I really look forward to in these matchups. Sean O'Malley has got hype before a title fight. Sean O'Malley has got hype before rankings. That's a big deal. I can only imagine how he's going to look when he gets to the belt. If he does get there, I predict that he will someday because he seems to be improving very rapidly. I like the way he fights. When he first came into the UFC, I almost feel like this whole USADA situation was a blessing in disguise because he had some lackluster performances. Against Andre Sukumtat, he was looking really good, but then, okay, it's Andre Sukumtat, he's fucking terrible. Then against Terrion Ware, who's a decent fighter, was 17-5 at the time. He kind of showed some holes in his game. He slows down a little bit, and now he's had some time off. It seems like he's really come into his own. Built himself into a real bantamweight, added a whole punch of power, taking his strength and conditioning way more seriously. I think he's going to go out there and light up Eddie Wineland. And listen, if Kelleher doesn't beat Cody Stamann, Song Yudong just got gifted a decision win against Marlon Vera. If they want to do Sean O'Malley versus Song Yudong after this one, if O'Malley does get past Wineland, I'm all for it. O'Malley versus Song Yudong is an amazing fight to make between you two young guns. They might not want to do it, but I think that's actually a real good matchup for O'Malley, and I think he could do well there. I think O'Malley's going to go far in this division. I'm looking forward to seeing him progress. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight Eddie Wineland. I just feel like the front kicks to the body, the inside leg kicks. He's not going to play the stand and throw combinations with you. It's single shots in and out. There's none of what Eddie Wineland wants. What Eddie Wineland wants is for you to shell up and him to trade punches with you. And beat you up and go to the body and rip to the body and then back to the head. O'Malley's not going to be standing there with a Gaethje guard looking for you to tee off on him. He's going to be bouncing around, throwing front kicks, whipping through amazingly powered inside leg kicks that knock guys off balance and cripple them like he did against Andre Sukumtar. I think he's going to eventually break down I wish it was Kelleher on this card. That would be a way more interesting matchup. A way more dangerous matchup as well for O'Malley. I think he's going to chop down Wineland in the first round, slow him down, make him stationary, throw a bunch of front kicks, keep him guessing, throw a bunch of feints, and then eventually get the head kick KO in the first round and put him down. O'Malley's real good at setting up the head kick. I think if he keeps going to the front kick to the body, he'll eventually maybe look for a question mark kick over the top and catch Eddie Wineland with his hands down and his body hunched over. Front kick to the face. We saw it with Renan Barão. I know he threw a spinning back kick, but still, Barão was throwing some inside kicks and some spinning back kicks to the body. Eddie Wineland covers up, shells up, leaves his face exposed, gets dropped to the canvas. I feel as though Sean O'Malley's going to be able to get it done. I really do. And if he does win this one, Jesus, we're off to the fucking races. The bantamweight division right now, I know they're doing some really stupid and bad matchmaking with Aldo versus Yan. And, you know, Aljamain not fighting for the belt. He's fighting Sandhagen and Assunção Garbrandt. Who knows what the winner of that's going to be doing. They might even give Garbrandt a title shot if they're that retarded. But even still, we've got a bunch of young names coming up at bantamweight. We've got guys like Ricky Simone, Montel Jackson, Sean O'Malley himself, Brian Kelleher. Not a young name, but a new reinvigorated name in that division. Bantamweight is really fun, but Sean O'Malley is going to annihilate Eddie Wineland. He just is. Like, it could happen that Eddie Wineland goes out there and shocks the world. I don't see it happening. I really don't. O'Malley just looks like he's really improved since his time off. I've got him winning. And I think if he wins this one, time for a ranking slot. No more smart fights, no more easy fights. If you win this one, O'Malley, it's time to take a jump into the rankings. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Click that button there. Good. Bye. Burped at the end. Are you kidding me? I was holding it in for the last 2 minutes. See you later. Oh yeah, and O'Malley, I've been subscribed to you on Twitch for about 2 years. You owe me about $500. And I'm coming for it.